I don't usually do these types of videos, but I felt like in the upcoming months there's gonna be a lot of new content coming out. And without a doubt, this will be one of the best quality of life balls we will ever see in old school RuneScape. I feel like these updates are long overdue, so without wasting any more time, let's get into the next quality of life changes in this game. Before we start, these updates have not been balled yet, so there is a very small chance they might not make it. But to be honest with you, all of these things are gonna be incredibly useful for the majority of players, so I doubt any of these are gonna fail, but only time will tell. Okay, let's start. First and foremost, I have waited for this update so freaking long, and it's finally here. If the ball passes, we are gonna get a SelfCast Teleport item that teleports you to safety if the player has not interacted with their client for a certain period of time. Meaning, if you disconnect from the server on your account after a delay that you can set yourself, your character will click on the teleport and take you to safety. Now, this actually is already a plugin for Theater of Blood in RuneLite, but not many people know about it. Essentially, you can join a party plugin with your teammates, and if one of your teammates disconnects, you can use the escape crystal on them to teleport them out. But with this update, you don't even need the plugin. Instead, you will have the item in your inventory and it reacts to only your client. A perfect solution to an already existing server issues we have currently. This teleport will be added to either Ring of Life or already existing escape crystal from DOB. You can even customize exactly how many seconds you have to be disconnected in order for the teleport to kick in, and same teleport restrictions still apply. aka, if you are teleblocked or over 30 wilderness, this does not work. I personally cannot wait for this honestly. As someone who is ready to do raids on their hardcore Iron Man, this will be an excellent update. Next up, we're gonna have changes that are not gonna be bold and will just be added into the game, as they were simply mistakes when first released, and now Jagex has the option to fix those mistakes. Firstly, we have the Abyssal Lantern, which many players have complained about not being able to obtain. The Abyssal Lantern is one of the key aspects of Guardians of the Rift minigame, and it has a large impact on your gameplay overall. But until now, you can only obtain it through the means of RNG, meaning some players are gonna be finished with the minigame itself before they obtain the crucial piece to help them inside the minigame. So now, Jagex has decided that you can purchase it from Felix with 1500 Abyssal Pearls. This is a much needed update as it's very useful item inside the minigame, and I feel like untradeable items that benefit the players shouldn't be as rare drops. Good examples are items like herb sacks, seed boxes, and skilling outfits. These are all useful items that are obtained through consistent currency, so it's good that the lantern is also added in. Next up, we have Laryns Keys, which so far have been an untradeable item that is dropped on death in the wilderness. So if someone PKs you, they get all the keys, and that's how people buy them if they're hunting collection log slots. The keys usually go around 200k each, and sometimes even up to 400k each if the stock is low. Since the market for the keys is actually pretty active, it also leaves room for a lot of scamming, as one party member has to upfront the cost, and to fix the problem, the Laryns Keys are gonna be tradable items from now on. This would remove the option for players to scam each other for trading these keys, meaning from now on, the wilderness layer is gonna be even more profitable, as you don't have to go through the hassle of finding a trusted buyer from Discord servers. One of the biggest issues so far in the next is that people can grief you intentionally by getting infected from the boss and then spreading that infection to everyone else in the room. And to fix that issue, Jagex is gonna allow the option to wear Slayer masks or face masks inside the next room and completely neglect any infection, even if the other infected players are on top of you. Next up, we have something for the endgame players. Every endgame Iron Man has experienced this. You have a sight, you have a Sang Staff, or you just do a lot of bursting, and that makes you use a lot of blood runes. It is a massive upkeep, because with max efficiency you can get up to 10,000 blood runes per hour, and if you put those blood runes into your weapons, you would on average get around 3 hours of use out of them. Using 10,000 blood runes for 3 hours of sight is very costly upkeep, and players don't like to spend entire days running blood runes just to use their weapons for few hours. To change that, Jagex has proposed an idea to add blood rune packs into shops, so you can upkeep the cost of your weapons more easily. Furthermore, they want to reduce the cost of these weapons slightly, so for instance, Sang Staff currently requires 3 blood runes for a single cast, maybe The cost could be decreased to 2 blood runes and 1 chaos runes, like for instance how the Dumekin shadow currently is. The ideas are still being fleshed out, and there is even an idea to make the items like Sight, like Sangstaff and so on a permanent item, like we have with Bofa, where you spend an expensive one-time cost to make sure you don't need to upkeep them constantly. The cost for permanent weapons have not been released yet, but I assume if the discussion did happen, it would have to be something extremely expensive, like 1 million blood runes, to keep in line with Bofa, where if you use the weapon long enough, the price is gonna pay for itself. But the initial price has to be very steep. This is actually one of those very controversial things that might happen in the game, so let me know what you think of this. Should we get a permanent option of the Sight and the Sangstaff, or is that not needed? Next up, we have one of the biggest updates in this patch, the combat achievement overhaul. Players have been complaining for a long time how the combat achievements just didn't feel that rewarding, considering how much time and effort and game knowledge you needed to complete them. And even if you did complete them, the rewards were lackluster for the effort that you put in. Jagex has now proposed a change to combat achievements and make them similar to what we had in Leagues, where the entire system is based on points rather than flat out completed tasks. And it's extremely simple concept. Step number 1 is to complete any combat achievement task and earn points based off how difficult that task was. At the top of your interface is a green bar, and once you fill that up, you unlock a tier of rewards. So for instance, in this picture the player has completed 3 hard tasks, which equals to 9 points, and the player needs 24 more points to unlock the next tier of rewards. Furthermore, there are even thresholds similar to Leagues that showcase you how many points you need to unlock the next tier of rewards. And it's that simple. For instance, let's say you like to do a little bit of everything in old school RuneScape and you rack up these kind of points. You got some points from every tier, and if you combine all of them, they will add up to a point where you have now unlocked hard combat achievement tier rewards without having to complete all of the tasks in hard tier. This allows players to get more excited about the combat achievements and makes the progress more meaningful, as you can constantly gain more points depending on what activity you choose to do, rather than having to complete one tier of achievements at a time. Next up that Jagex is planning to do is the Tide Farm. This minigame has been a very painful experience to many players, as it unlocks the farming outfit, herb sacks, seed boxes and other useful farming benefits. The problem, however, is that the points are very slow to come by, and oftentimes you get crashed by other players when playing the minigame. To change that, Jagex is proposing these changes to the minigame. Firstly, Tide Farm will now become a solo instance content, so you don't have to share it with other players, leaving no option for others to crash you. Secondly, the points are now gonna be increased. Previously, you could only get 24 or 25 points per 100 seeds. Now with the changes, you can get up to 35 points per 100 seeds. And you don't have to deposit all your fruit with one go. You can take as many seeds as you want and deposit your fruits whenever you feel like leaving. This means that from now on you can get more points and you get punished much less if you mess up during the minigame. To add on top of that, there are slight few changes with the rewards, as now you can get double the amount of blessings from Tide Farm to allow you to farm Samarak wines. And secondly, Jagex wants to add herb lore boxes to the Tide Farm as a new rewards. If you don't know what herb boxes are, you could get them from Nightmare Zone for 9,500 points, and there is a limit of 15 boxes per day. Currently, one herb box contains about 10k GP worth of herbs, and this would give players an option to obtain herbs in other means than from Nightmare Zone, as it ties in with the farming skill itself through the minigame. This is a definite yes vote from me. Next up, we have changes from the Gauntlet and Demonic Gorillas. Old school RuneScape is heavily known for NPCs using different attack cycles. For instance, Demonic Gorillas deal 3 attacks with one style and then swap to next one, and the same goes for the Hunlev in Gauntlet. Every 4th attack swaps between ranged and mage attacks. Jagex wants to propose an idea where these switches from one style to another are more effective, and the player can visually see if the changes happen either through audio cues or animations. Something similar has already been done in Alchemical Hydra, where every 3rd attack it swaps styles, and you can see it yourself through an animation. To add on top of that, Demonic Gorillas will restore their hit points to full now if it has not been attacked for a certain period of time, to make sure that if you go attack them yourself, you don't hit a half damage gorilla and get no loot from the kill. Next up, we have Blue Dragon Scales, which are common herb items used in completing anti-fire potions. The problem so far has been that there are only 2 options to obtain them. One is through Nightmare Zone points, where players want to actually spend their points on more valuable items like herb boxes or imbuing their rings, not to mention mention, Ironmans can't even access Blue Dragon skills here, and Chew is collecting them manually in Taverley Dungeon or Mid-Skill Dungeon, both of which are very time consuming. Jagex is proposing an idea to add them as a guaranteed 100% drop from Blue Dragons now. Adult Blue Dragons would drop 2 Nota Blue skills, Brudal Dragons would drop 3, and Warcut would drop 5. These drops would be in addition to normal loot and is meant as an ongoing activity to improve farming Herblot secondaries like we saw in previous polls about Night Cave Shades and how they are a stackable item now. And last big change is the Wilderness and Revenants. With the Wilderness bosses rework, the Revenants also got a small buff to their drop table. Now getting a Wilderness weapon is 5 times more likely to happen from Revenants if you are on a Slayer task. The problem, however, is that oftentimes you get a very few Revenants per task, on average about 50 to 70, which is quite small. Jagex proposes an idea to double that amount and get up to 150 Revenants per task if you unlock it through Slayer rewards, and this will cost you up to 100 Slayer points. Furthermore, Jagex wants to double the drop rate for Trower Parchments, an item that allows you to protect an extra gear slot in Deep Wilderness. The changes to Trower Parchment were made in LMS, where the cost of it went from 30 points to 18 points, but it was never adjusted in the Wilderness Slayer drop table. And finally, Jagex wants to add a looting pack to Slayer store to be able to purchase for 10 Slayer points. And that almost does it with the updates. We still have a few more changes that Jagex likes to implement, and one of them is allowing a guaranteed drop of Slip Tablet from Nightmare Boss after 100 KC. This tablet is used to teleport almost next to the boss itself and has been a problem for a long time, as without the tablet you would have to do a 4-minute walk to the boss, which for players who enjoy slaying the Nightmare Boss is very painful. Next up we have the Swamp Park and Blood Park armors that you get from the Shades of Morton minigame. At first they were intended to power up your bind spells on normal spellbooks and blood spells on your ancient spellbooks, but the buffs they offer are just not good enough at this state, so Jagex wants to buff them even further. The idea is to rebalance their stats and focus more on buffing the unique effects. So for instance, the Swamp Park armor allows the entangle spells to be 3 seconds longer, but the cost, which is almost 300k for the entire armor, does not really make sense for the extra 3 seconds in the Wilderness. And secondly, the Blood Park armor heals you for up to 35% of the damage dealt with blood spells, which is very negligible and only really useful in some niche areas of the game. And the main issue at hand is that it takes so freaking long to get it that it's just not worth the time or effort. So hopefully Jagex looks into it and makes it more accessible and powerful for all players. And finally, the Volcanic Mine has an option for one-time payment now, which is 3000 Numelites as opposed to the 100 per run that you have to do right now. And that's it. What are your thoughts about these updates? Is there anything you like specifically? For me, it's definitely the SelfCast Teleports and the Tide Farm changes that I'm looking forward the most. But as always, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel, as it really does help me out a lot. But until then, I love you all very much, and I'll see you in a few days with another video. Bye! Mwah.